differential or that time availability shrinks or evaporates altogether. So what once may have been a warfighting advantage has now become a warfighting necessity. One aspect to characterize JADC2 would also be on its data-centric focus. It is all about the data, which makes this different. You might have characterized other efforts over the past decade or two on boxes or hardware, or even in some cases, standards themselves. This is a bit different. It balances or seeks to balance the need to secure the data that's necessary to feed these algorithms and make these decisions with the necessity to share that information at speed. And those two things at times are at odds with each other. It also helps us integrate some of these key technologies we've been trying to do in the department for some time. It gives us our best chance to do that. Things like artificial intelligence at scale, machine learning, predictive analytics, and the like. These are all enabling requirements for us to execute that decision advantage at the tactical edge. It leverages the good work of the services. There's been a lot of writing about what the services are doing, and in some cases it's been characterized as independent and conflicting. I would correct that and say that the experimentation that they're doing in JADC2 to date has been very complementary. The services have approached both their service and combatant command needs, I think, quite well. It is truthful, I believe, though, that if left to go on at some point of time without some level of framework or order to that process, we could find ourselves at odds with each other, meaning that we may not be interoperable both in procedure and also in that speed of data sharing. So the timing is right for this. It allows us to do some best of breed picking on who is solving those problems the best way. And more importantly, what we're going to avoid is vendor lock or proprietary solutions, which have plagued us in the past. We want this to be open source. We want to use the same technology and mindset our industry partners use today. From a partner perspective, this has our mission partners and allies as a forethought, not as an afterthought. Probably fair criticism in the past of the U.S. going forward, building this capability. Again, whether it be procedures, hardware, exchanges, et cetera, and then trying to bring partners on later on and finding that it's very difficult to do and late to need. So we brought them in early. There are challenges when it comes to budget and what information can be shared. And I won't try and state that this is an equal advance, but we're sharing as much as we can possibly share, and we've made great strides in working together. But that's the goal. We are not going to operate or fight alone, and we've got to make sure we have partners in mind, and that joint strategy has a significant portion of it dedicated specifically to that objective. And lastly, I think, and most importantly, for all the excitement of the strategy, and I am genuinely excited to have it signed, this really starts our work. It's now implementation time. Planning is good, talk is good, now it's delivery time. And we've been given the clear signal to begin pushing these outcomes to the people who need them. And while the warfighters might appreciate the many efforts that we go through to do this, they live with our outcomes. And it's outcome delivery time. And that's where we are. So I'd be more than happy to take any questions you might have.
Bob, go ahead.
General, I'm wondering, you mentioned implementing this now. Is implementing it dependent upon getting the JEDI cloud computing project done, or at least started? Or is that just a different thing?
It's not a different thing. So we have some key dependencies to make these things happen. Cloud, network improvements, identity management would be another one. There's many areas that the Chief Information Officer, the Chief Data Officer, the Joint Artificial Intelligence Center pieces have to come together. So I would answer the question, we are clearly in need of cloud to include a deployable tactical cloud to do this type of processing and data storage on the edge.
So does the legal problem there with the JEDI contract mean it's going to slow this down or prevent it from proceeding?
Where we are right now in the experimentation phase, I think that we have adequate resources to get after, picking and choosing what works. But without an enterprise cloud solution, clearly that would inhibit us in the future. But we have the means necessary today to do that level of experimentation. But it's probably easy to figure, how long would it take us before we exceed our capabilities. Mm-hmm.
And we're going to go to the phones too. We have Jackson Barnett from FedScoop.
Thank you very much, General, for doing this. Could you speak more to how exactly you are working with the services to integrate their efforts, be it ABMS, Project Convergence? What is the actual mechanism to make this a joint effort?
No, that's a great question. And the Deputy Secretary this is really an area in which she has given us, again, not only clear guidance, but a usable, workable mechanism to accomplish that. So we've had recently signed the cross-functional team charter for JADC2. And that is the widest table setting you can imagine of attendees to get after these problems. It provides an atmosphere to present where you're at, but it also gives the audience an opportunity to lay flat these differences or project what we may have challenges moving forward in the future. And the way that the governance is designed is that we have a couple venues to take potential decisions out of that cross-functional team. Once their work is done, if you looked at imagine a diagram of flow of information, from that cross-functional team come recommendations. Those recommendations have the ability eventually to flow through our Joint Requirements Oversight Council to codify those ideas as requirements. That has been a weakness in the past, is we haven't really set real requirements. And without requirements, people do what's right in their own eyes. And that leads to an area where you may find conflict. So the Joint Requirements Oversight Council codifies those, and then we move them potentially through an op steps or an area of risk assessment to prioritize what those investment strategies should be. And then we have the ability to take them to a DMAG where the Deputy Secretary can balance those requirements across the department and make those decisions both in time and space for us to implement. So we have had pieces of this in the past. We've never had these comprehensively put together in one package. And that's set and codified both within the strategy and within that cross-functional team charter.
Go ahead, Jan.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, General. I know your missions will share with our alliance. And how will this JADC2 affect the South Korea's operational doctrine?
Sure. So when you look at partners writ large, to include South Korea, we have a head start in this area. We're very careful when we use the word standards. Standards in some circles, I think we say with the big S, has been kind of a recipe for past failure. Very prescriptive. You must conform to some rigid, adherent protocol or schema, and those things tend to not last very long. Standards from a sense of commonality, where there's a little bit of flexibility, tolerances are opened a bit. I would use in the terms of federated mission network, this idea of us taking protocols that are already available to about 35 countries that we deal with now, that recognize what information looks like, that we can import into our weapon systems or again for our normal exchanges. So with our allies and partners, we have already a fairly defined protocol that we can use. And we're working that as the lead for our mission partner environment. So it's a different approach. It's not enough to get us fully to integration, but we're told it's a pretty good start.
Will this also include South Korea's wartime of operational command and control, or a little different?
It should only affect, in fact, I start a little bit differently. for all the solutions that we talk about, and they tend to be technical IT or CIO type thinking, where we start with garrison solutions and then eventually work our way to the tactical edge and what it would look like in an austere warfight, where maybe the bandwidth would be restricted or our environment would be challenged. We're taking a different look at JADC2. We're starting on the tactical edge and working backwards. So to answer your question directly, it is the warfighting environment for which we are building the JADC2 outcome.
Thank you very much.
Yes, ma'am.
Back to the phones. Andrew Everson.
General Kroll, thanks so much for doing this. What are some of the, now that the strategy is signed, what are some of the key milestones you're looking to hit maybe in the next year? And is this a document that will be released to the public?
So we have an unclassed document that we're nearly finished on, and I think it is substantive. That will give you a really good feel for what we're driving to. So some priorities that we have, and your question really is, now that we've got it, where do you start? There's several areas that I think we've already started and will continue on, and that really is, and maybe I'll give you a few. A few we have to solve, otherwise issues like cloud will almost be irrelevant. We have to set some things right in the department, and the first one is the definition of a federated data fabric. We've had several data summits. We're about to have another one here shortly in about a week, where we're pulling the community together to define what this looks like. Again, that balance of tolerances. You set it too open, you don't have a standard. Set it too narrow, it's too prescriptive. There is something in the middle that fits right, and that's what we're in search of. And again, we've had a couple of these already. At the small level, this is our second large event. So that's one area. Identity, credentials, and management. This idea of determining your authenticity on the network. If we don't have real ICAM solutions, it will be impossible to have a cloud-based environment that brings you data, the right data, to an authenticated person at the right time and place. So that's an area we're looking at. Software development. Professionally developed, nimble, containerized, upgradable software versus software that is locked, almost impossible to change, and can't be adapted, again, in those areas of the fight we expect to be. So those are a few, and I would probably throw in some network enhancements as well that we're trying to mitigate right now. If you think about the speed and the resilience that our networks are going to need to operate in this fight, we've got work to do in that area. And so it's full steam on to make those changes today. And one of those will be to move to a zero trust environment versus the perimeter environment we find ourselves in today.
Pat Tucker, Defense One. I wonder, different aspects of experimentation with JADC2 have already been occurring. There's the ABMS effort, there's the Army's Project Convergence effort, there's the Navy's Project Overmatch. The budget request is already out with some items that sort of speak to JADC2. So I wonder if you can be a little more specific on what the signing of the strategy enables you to do right now that you wouldn't have been able to do before. Like, what does that exactly kick into place?
Yeah, so like as of the day it was signed, right, and what it means to us. So I would say a couple things. One, it provides now real lines of effort. So while I could persuade, which is what, it would be in the eye of the beholder whether or not I was successful. I think it's a mixed bag there. But I could persuade individuals to adhere to a framework and a structure. And if there was slow compliance or no compliance, there was really no teeth in the system to make that change. We had no Northern Star. So specifically what it does now is allow me to take that JADC2 strategy and a specific line of effort and place it directly over the top of this experimentation and vet it and say what parts of those are in compliance today and which parts are not. And the pieces that are not, what do you want to do with those? Do we break them off into smaller experimentations because they still may be pointing to something? Or do I recapitalize that money and put it somewhere else? The good news for the three that you mentioned, and there's more than three, the good news for those three are they are each testing something discretely different. And they're each testing something valuable to the JADC2 solution. And again, being completely transparent, let that go a year. without any intervention, and I'm not sure we would be as welcoming, because the investment strategy may be locking some decisions in that we may find not working well in the environment. So specifically what it allows us to do is to now look for compliance in the direction that we've set inside of JADC2.
Is today the actual date of the Secretary's signing, or what is the actual date of the signing of the strategy by the Secretary?
Yeah, the strategy was signed on the 13th of last month.
Okay, back to the phones, Mallory Shelburne.
Thanks so much. Thanks, General, for doing this. So the Navy and the Marine Corps both have some elements on their unfunded priorities list that would feed into the JADC2 effort. Do you feel that this effort is adequately funded? And what would you say about the pieces of unfunded priorities that the services say they need to work toward this?
I think what we have to do is take a look at a couple things. One, we're probably never going to be able to reconcile, all the desires that folks want to do with, what the available resources are. I firmly believe we are adequately resourced to get done with the experimentation phase we're talking about, and continuing the good work in the three areas that we described, and a few other lines of effort that we didn't discuss. I'll say we're at a good starting point for today. What I also think, though, that we have to be clear about recapitalizing some of the investments we have that may not be very productive. It's fair to say that some of these things that we do, maybe under the old way of thinking, fits that quadrant we want to avoid, and that is, it doesn't work, but at least it's expensive. We've got to fight our way out of that. And there are examples of things that we just need to stop investing in and start investing in maybe a better way of doing business. And they've been recognized. We've tagged some of these, and we're already making decisions along those lines. So it's not about just doing everything we're doing today exactly as we're doing it and then adding something new. I think we need to be really smart about the way we move forward and utilize the resources we're given smartly. So we'll see how that pans out. It's early in the process, so I'll probably have to give you an unsatisfying answer, is that I really don't know the full impact of that, but I'm optimistic, and I think I'm realistically optimistic, that we have enough to get started.
Thanks. Mike Stone, Reuters. Just to go back, one housekeeping question. The signing on the 13th, does that, and the teeth that it provides to your office, does that provide an ability to cancel the JEDI contract? Is there now more equity that you have to dial that back?
I don't know, to be honest. And I'll say this, that I kind of leave that in the realm, of the Chief Information Officer and the Deputy Secretary. I don't have an answer to whether that provides teeth. I think the decision-making ability in the department, has been there long before the JADC2 document was signed.
So if cloud is pivotal to JADC2,
yes.
Then if JEDI is tortured or canceled, are you contemplating a multi-cloud platform for JADC2?
Well, there already is a multi-cloud environment, right, that already exists. And again, if I look at my use case and demand where I'm at today, because I'm at the, really the starting line for this, I'm able to take advantage of that multi-cloud provisioning. I think the real question would be how long can you do that? When do you run out of resources? And then, is it cost effective? Not every cloud performs the same way. The clouds have different characteristics that need to survive on that tactical edge. So again, where I sit today, I can get the work done we need to get started. But make no mistake, your opening line is accurate. JADC2, the delivery of JADC2 is dependent on a robust, purpose-built cloud for the environment that we need to operate in.
Another one from the phone lines, Colin Clark.
Yes, sir. As you know, Breaking Defense has been following this for a while, and one of the things that you told us is that you'd like to see much better work, much more focused work coming out of the defense industry. So if you had the chance to sit down with, say, the CEOs of the top 10 defense companies what would you tell them they need to change?
Academia, and I think we've been consistent in our message, and I've stated or hinted about some of that in the beginning. First of all, we demand the best that industry has to offer today, not what I would consider to be something that is past its prime. So we're looking to leverage and take advantage again of what we require to execute our mission. We also want to avoid proprietary solutions. We want data sharing. We want to have the ability to fuse data sets together in ways that are nimble, like industry does today, meaning we have to share a little bit of the backside of how those things work. So meeting us at speed, less about boxes, again, less about vendor lock, more real open way of doing business, and to move at speed. That's what I've asked for. And frankly, we need solutions that work on the tactical edge. And the reference you're making was at a speech I gave some time ago where I specifically referenced identity management. We need to be able to do that in a deployed environment. And I have been critical. The industry solutions that we've been offered don't work in the area I need them to work. They work great in the national capital region. They don't work really well in an austere environment coming out of the back of an airplane or at sea. And that's where we're starting. And those are the discussions we've had.
Louis.
Hi, sir. Just a quick question. I mean, you're with the Joint Staff, with the J6. How do you implement this in the real world at the COCOM level? Or is this just currently just stay at the service level for now? I think you just mentioned at the end of your answer now how you get to the end point.
Yeah, I think that's really the magic of the Secretary signing this. Right. We've had, if you went back and looked at some of these efforts or pieces of it over the past decade and a half, they've always been limited to one faction or one portion of the department. This is the first that I'm aware of where it's brought all these entities together. So when you look at the ability to deliver an outcome across these various places which have normally, in some cases, have had difficulty of having consistency through them. That's what makes this different. That cross-functional team is a real cross-functional team. It respects the services provisions to deliver capabilities to combatant commands. Doesn't change anything in that realm. The JROC still functions at producing requirements. The Deputy Secretary still makes those decisions in that DMAG process to ensure that the funding and alignment is given to those priority efforts. The difference is we're now able to advise her across the entire department, not from one segment.
So therefore, I mean, this is the guidance that end users will be able to use to figure out how to implement all of this together in a day-to-day operation.
That's right. Not only do they get to influence how we do that, they are the judges of how well it works. Right? That's our customer, is the warfighter. How they vote will determine whether or not we're successful.
Okay, I think that's it. Thank you very much, sir. Appreciate
Thank
your
you.
time today. Thank you.
Well, we are vigilant on international travel, and we're very cautious, and there's a reason for that, and that is that the risk of new variants that undermine the vaccine rollout program is a really serious risk for this country, and so we only put countries on the green list when we're highly confident that it's safe to travel there. Unfortunately, we did see an increase in the number of a new variant